Welcome everybody to another episode of Bill on Bikes. As a recording of this, it is May 19, 2026. We're in my facility, Motorcycle Garage in Phoenix. As always, I thank all of you for watching and subscribing. It's great. What do we have here? This is a 2007 Road King, but kind of a unique one. It's a Peace Officer Special. Now, don't hold me to these dates. I think they started producing Peace Officer and Firefighter special editions maybe around 2002 and ran through 2013 or so. They may even have a program today. I'm not 100% sure. Those are the years I remember. Different configurations. The Road King was the most popular. They came in this dark blue. There were some two-tones. Matter of fact, one of my good friends, and he ended up being a manager in my store, Steve Lavoie, my father, they both had FLHPs. Two-tone blue. My father went through them all the time because he just wanted to flip them and sell them. That's kind of a weird story. So back in the day, obviously, when Harley was crazy and we couldn't get enough motorcycles, what we would do is, and I'm not saying we necessarily did it, even though I know a lot of dealers that did, and maybe we did, maybe we didn't, I don't know. But let's say you were a police officer, you would order the bike. I knew damn well you were never going to take the bike. We'd give you $500, $1,000. Down the road you go. We put the bike on the floor and sell it to somebody else. That was so common because we were trying to get our allotment up. Most dealers did it. Anyway, I don't know. That was the Harley craze. So we did whatever we could to get more allotment because the motor company couldn't produce them fast enough, but these special editions, you could get your hands on them and you could make good money on them. The Firefighter editions came in what was called Signal Red. I think they had some other colors over the years also, maybe some two-tones, things like that. Like I said, they came in Road Kings, FLHPs, FLHTs, that style. They even had a Heritage model. I'm probably missing a couple in there, but they were nice bikes, and this particular customer, I know he's not a police officer. I don't know if he's original owner or not. His name's Kevin Ryan. He's been my customer for a long time. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's not running very well. Not sure what's going on. I think it's a fuel issue. Let's see if it'll even start up. It's been sitting, so I'm not sure. I do hear the pump fire up. Usually I can hear fuel bleeding off if it's some sort of internal leak, but let's see if it'll start. It doesn't even want to start. Well, hang on here. I gotta get the fob next to it. We'll cycle the ignition again. Let me go to the other side here and give it a little throttle, see if we can get her to start. Yeah, it doesn't even want to run. So, I'm thinking we have a fuel pressure issue, so I'll get my handy dandy gauge hooked up, and then we'll see if we have fuel pressure, and we'll go from there. I thank all of you for watching, subscribing. I really appreciate it. And let's try to figure this out together and let's fix it. All right, reposition the camera for you. Let's disconnect our fuel line. You want to push up on this. This one's kind of frozen. You want to push up on the outer coupling and then pull down. So you push up on the sleeve here. And sometimes these can really be frozen because they've been in there for a while. A little squirt of fuel. Technically, you're supposed to bleed the pressure off, but I never do. That's why I have a towel ready. It's just another thing I don't need to do when I'm trying to get stuff done here. And we put our adapter on. Hopefully my O-rings aren't going to leak here. Sometimes they leak on me. Put this one up in position. I can already tell you his fuel valve here is kind of gucked up. I'll rotate our line. Hopefully I'm not in your way too much here so you can see what's going on. And we'll see if this is going to leak on me. A lot of times this hose puts enough pressure on here too that it causes them to leak when I'm trying to test them, but we'll see. That seems okay. Make sure my gauge is, the bleed valve is shut off. Let's see if we can get it started. I'm not sure we're going to be able to even check this. So let's get the other end on here. All right, let's see. Get a new towel that's not gas soaked near the spark plug. That's not good. All right, let's see what we can do here. I can't even reach that side. So stand by to stand by. These guys have these foolish beach bars on here, and I can't even reach the other side. Doesn't run run so good. Let's see if I'm getting any fuel pressure at all here, even here on the gauge. Oh, I can barely reach this. All right, well, I got decent fuel pressure here. That's 60 pounds. And you can see after shutting it off, wait 30 seconds, it's holding pressure on what's called the fuel rail internally in the tank. And isn't it funny that the bike didn't even want to run before start? Now we have good fuel pressure. That is definitely strange. So I wonder what we got going on here. Well, we're gonna have to figure this out. So maybe we don't have a fuel pressure issue. Maybe it's something else, because that's still holding good pressure on the rail, so I don't have an internal leak. All right, let's figure this out. Guess we'll start by taking the bags off and popping off the seat. Just goes to show you, sometimes you think you know what's going on and ends up being totally something different. Even though I do find it strange, and once I hooked up the fuel gauge, it worked correctly. Here's one of these funky Corbin seats where you have to use a key to get it off. A lot of times these don't want to disconnect, which I'm not a big fan of these, to be honest. Lift from the front, okay. How the hell's he got this battery on here? All right, well, let's take a look at the battery terminals to begin with. They appear to be tight. This looks like some El Cheapo kind of battery, though. It's like a piece of crap to me, but that's my opinion. Okay, let's investigate this further. I'm gonna try to start this again. Check for something here. All right, well, it's a strange one. We have good fuel pressure. Didn't know it had a ThunderMax, so now we're gonna go in and look at that. I'm gonna hook the computer up, so stand by to stand by. All right, and get our laptop plugged in here. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I was a really big advocate of ThunderMax for a long, long time. I went to Whitehorse, Tennessee, where they're manufactured. I did training there. I was there for like a week. This is a while ago. I can't remember what year I went. I'm gonna guess and say maybe 2016, somewhere in there, maybe 14, somewhere, I don't know. And you know, good product, but I will say, customer service wise, probably the worst in the industry. I can't stand their customer service. I've called them out on it. So much so I have the owner's number in my phone. He said, you have a problem, call me. Well, I'm not gonna bother him. A lot of the ThunderMaxes have this inherent problem. Every 15th start cycle or so, sometimes 20, 25, somewhere in there, you go to hit the button and they just crank. They don't have spark, because I've done it with a spark tester. I've checked them I don't know how many times. They say, well, you have to do a firmware update. So you have everything up to date, still do it. Then you got to jump through all kinds of hoops to have things tested out. You can't just talk to somebody on the phone. They always want you to do it through email. You got to do data collection. Well, sometimes when you plug this in and you hook up to your laptop, when this particular issue arises and you're trying to do a data collection, it locks up your laptop. And I've tried to explain that to them numerous times till I'm red in the face and I'm done with it. And myself and Nick Trask were the two biggest resellers of ThunderMax in Arizona. And I've sold a ton of them. But over the last few years, I've been getting away from doing a lot more with DynoJet. And in the newer stuff, 23.5 and up, we're gonna start, I'm in process of becoming a dealer for Impact Wiring Solutions. Tom, my good dyno buddy that comes here and runs the dyno oftentimes for me, he's already been trained on it. So we're gonna start getting into that. And I'm just getting away from ThunderMax. And it's just the way it is. And you're not gonna change my mind at this point. Now, I still love the Zippers Morelli conversion. I have two more waiting. I just had a bike brought to me all the way from Utah. Thank you, Kim, by the way. And we'll be doing that conversion, and they work great. Every now and then I'll have the same starter issue with those, cycle the ignition, but compared to a Morelli, it's 1,000 times better, so why not do it? But as far as the other versions of the ThunderMax, I'm just, like I said, I'm just getting away from them. Anyway, long story short, let's fire up the computer here. I'm gonna turn on the ignition. I have the key fob nearby. This may take a second because I gotta get this to recognize the T-Mac. And it's really too bad because I don't wanna see a product fail. And not that ThunderMax is going anywhere. It's just, you know, to me, customer service is important. Just, you know, I'm their customer, you're my customer. And when we have an issue, I think that they should take care of me because I'm trying to take care of you. And it just upsets me. I get tired of it. Okay, firmware upgrade is available. Let's see. Before you want to do that, I'll tell you that. Never just go and do a firmware upgrade without first making sure you look at this actual ThunderMax and see what information's in there. So what I'll do is because it'll erase it. So before I do that, what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna close this screen and I'm gonna go over to File, and I'm gonna read Module Maps and Settings. So now I know I'm specifically looking at this T-Max and see what information is in it. I also should have a charger hooked up here because I should have done that from the get-go, because I might have this ignition on for a while and I may want to pull the light fuse, which is another good habit to get into. Let's scoot this under here. I find it funny when you go through all this stuff. A lot of times everybody says, well, it looks so easy on the internet. Yeah, the interwebs make things look really easy. You got to remember, we edit a lot of this stuff. It's not that easy most of the time. Okay. We got that plugged in, and I think what we're gonna do here is probably go to the other side and pull the light fuse while I'm doing all this. Save us some power. Now, here's one of these funky exhausts on here, and I want to protect our cover from paint damage, because the muffler's kind of close here to the head pipe, so I put a towel. That's another thing. Some of this aftermarket stuff like this, Vance and Hines exhaust, it fits like crap. I'm just gonna be honest with you. They're another company that some of these companies can be difficult, I'm not gonna lie to you. While I'm talking about it, I might as well bring this up to you. So, how many of you have heard of the aftermarket exhaust with header debris in the pipe? And it was basically D&D that had the big issue. Guys had just done a fresh, let's say, 121, 131, 135 build M8 stuff. And they're firing these bikes up, and within 10 minutes, they're just disintegrating. Well, Harley actually put out a service bulletin. It's called M16779. So M1679 is the designator. You can see this. I specifically went out to all the dealers. And this go out in April or March. Yeah, March 13th, 2026. Then you could just see the damage that it was doing to pistons and things like that. And this is all debris. That's a oil pan. And you can see the debris in the pan. Big issue. I don't know what happened in the manufacturing process, whether they clean those after they've been coated or whatever, but that stuff, the coating was in the exhaust. It's getting sucked right into the engine through reversion, which you can go back and look at earlier videos that have talked about exhaust reversion. Pull that right into the engine, and that's all she wrote. So anyway, bad enough that Harley put a service bulletin out on it, so maybe you guys want to take a look at that. I'm sure you can find it online. That's another thing. For $300 and something for a month, I can go on to Harley HD Net and pull up all the service bulletins that are up to date. And I do that once a year just to stay up to date to what's going on at the motor company, which a lot of shops probably don't do that, but I do, because I want to know what's going on. I think it's important to keep you guys safe, and sometimes it'll save me time. Anyway, let me get that light fuse pulled before I so rudely interrupted myself. All right, let's get this off. And which one's the light? It is this one here. It's another thing we have a big issue with is corrosion over at the fuse panels, especially on these particular years. I'll get rid of lights. And where is the headlamp? Right next to it. Okay, we'll pop that one off. Okay, so we got our two light fuses out. That's going to save on battery drain. Now, I'm over here to our T-Max program, and I read this unit, so let's go to T-Max Control Center. This is a brand new Dell, and even this, as fast as this computer is, it still takes time for this stuff to come up. So standby to standby. I should put that on a shirt, huh? Standby to standby. Oh, and to the guy that sent me a comment, which is very nice of you, and I appreciate anybody who sends comments. It was about the Bagger Racing League, as I call it, land yacht racing. And he's trying to tell me how there's more viewers for that than MotoGP. Well, first of all, that's not true. But that's cool. If you believe it, whatever. But I still say, these are touring motorcycles. And as much as it's been great for the Harley-Davidson industry and my business, I mean, guys are doing inverted front ends, they're doing upgrades, they're doing a lot of engine work. They did engine work anyway, but it's great because the Screaming Eagle Racing Division is putting so much product development into the newer bikes. I like the new 6-speed trannies and the new clutch that Harley has. I mean, don't ever go buy an aftermarket clutch. Buy the Harley one because it's the best on the market. It's the same one they use. The same with the transmissions, you know? Why go spend money for a Baker that they don't directly just bolt in half the time? You have to do certain things. Get the Harley one, and it's almost bulletproof. Anyway, I just not into land yachts. I'm into MotoGP. You watch those bikes, they lay into a corner, and it's just nice and smooth. You watch the Harleys, they're wobbling all over, the bags are flopping around. And it's the furthest thing from a bagger. If you think that's the same bagger that they're running on the street, you're sadly mistaken. And even that CVO that they came out with, that special edition, they built 131 of them or whatever it was, the racing, that's not the same one that's on the track either. So anyway, I don't know, I'm venting. No land yachts. I'm gonna get shirts that say that too. Anyway, all right, let me see. Let's pull up this ThunderMax info. I'm gonna close this one. That's another thing. It does not want to recognize the map. And I do not understand. It happens all the time with these. So let's go and do this. We're gonna update the ThunderMax program. Again, all the stuff you guys don't see because it all gets edited out. I can do the, what's that music? Da, 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 da. Just time consuming. And this might even get edited out. I don't know. That's up to my editor. But this is what we go through. It's like watching paint dry. It's funny I have to go through all this update. I used this just a week ago on a ThunderMax. I got something new here. Doing some reconfiguration to my program. You know, guys, I'm going on a nice vacation in about 3 weeks. I can't wait. Maybe it's 5 weeks. I can't wait. 14 days. All the way down Mexico, sitting on the beach. I can't wait. I need it. I'm tired. I work a lot of hours. 6 days a week since I was a kid. They're gonna make me restart it. Yep. Even move my icon. That's weird. Okay. Let's do it again. All right, we want to read our module maps and settings again. We are linked. Document will be created. Yes. All right. Now we're up here. So, front cylinder point sample quality, excellent. You could change 570 points. Cylinder rear 543. Some require 20% adjustment. But before we do that, I am going to look at codes. Let's see what we have here. So, okay, throttle position sensor error range. We got a couple of those. So, throttle position sensor range. 2 of them, they're both historic. One's low and one's high. So that leads me to believe sometimes we can have a connection issue here. Usually that doesn't happen on these ones though. It's more on the throttle by wires. So that's strange that we have, unless it's just looking at the throttle plate. Because it can't be the twist grip sensor because we don't have that on this model. Before we do that, I'm going to close this. I'll look at something here. I'm not going to run the auto map yet. And the reason I do that is where I don't know what's going on here, some of those points could be corrupted. So you don't want to go in and put a corrupted fuel value in when you're having some sort of issue. So let's wait on that. Let's see if we can get this started. Well, that's funny. She's still running pretty good compared to how it was at the beginning. As you know, it didn't even want to start. And I'm not seeing anything really out of whack here. Well, let's do this. Okay, we're going to clear those historic codes. I'm going to run this auto map. And I'm going to put it into the running position. You know, that's another issue with what you don't realize with the ThunderMax is, yes, it's learning all this information, but then you need to take it and put it in the running position. So you go out, you ride around for a while, it's doing its auto-tune thing, looking at the wideband O2 sensors, changing fuel curves or amount of fuel that's going into each different cell. Then you have to download that into the running position. Now the newer T-Maxes are doing some auto tuning to timing, but the earlier ones, no, you have to go in and make timing adjustments and all that stuff yourself. So this is a weird one. Why is it running good now? Because it's on the doctor's bench. Is that how it usually goes? You go to the doctor and all of a sudden you feel better? So this is a strange one. I'm still leaning towards it. Maybe some weird fuel issue, even though I'm showing good pressure there. Well, we'll figure it out. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna look at the fuel map here again. Start this up. I'm seeing a little bit of oil over here. Of course, that could be him doing his own oil change, which is probably what it is. These guys aren't very neat, and that's not one of the filters I run, so I can tell it wasn't done here. Now, sometimes we can have issues with crank position sensors where they'll start to go, they'll lose spark, they look obviously engine phase, and they don't always show up as a DTC, I've found. So this has got something going on because it's running really good right now, which is strange. So what I'm gonna do is put a fan on this and cool it down and take a look at all my cold settings and then go from there. So stand by and stand by again. I'm gonna have to cool this down. Yeah, we definitely have a strange one here. Strange one. Something strange in the neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters. You know, funny thing about Ghostbusters, did you guys know I used to do Dan Aykroyd's bike? I think when did I meet him? He had a bike shipped to us from California, and then I serviced it and did things for him, made changes or whatever all the way. I think he still has it. I probably met him in '93, would have been when they had just wrapped up maybe Ghostbusters 2, somewhere in there, because those guys all hang out on Martha's Vineyard. So yeah, he was handing me tools, signed an autograph on the wall. That was when we were in our second facility, not our newer one, so we were building the new one. That's kind of cool. And then one day I got a call from the guy on the vineyard that houses the bike, and he said, "Hey Bill, can you give Jimmy and his brother a ride over to the Air Force Base? They got a gig after." I said, "Yeah, I'll do that." It was like a Saturday. And sure, it was, they're bringing Danny's bike because he wanted me to service it. And it was Jim Belushi and another brother, which I didn't know they had. And they have some blues band together or something. They were doing a gig over at the base and like, "Hey, come hang out and stuff." And a Saturday afternoon, I'm going home. That's one reason I think those guys kind of liked us, because we just treat everybody the same. I don't care if you're famous, not famous, it doesn't matter. Anyway, that's kind of cool. This bike's got some weird things going on. I even got a ton of oil up here leaking. I don't know if that's from a crappy oil change that the customer did or what. And then I just noticed on the other side, I noticed wires grounding out against the rear cylinder for the horn, so we're gonna fix that. And his top motor mounts are loose. That's why I have a wrench on me to tighten them up. I mean, you know, a service is not just an oil change. I haven't seen this bike in years, and some of these guys, you got to keep after this stuff. You know, that powder coat gets hot, it kind of, gets soft, and the bolts, can loosen up. You got to check all this stuff at a service, and if you don't, you can end up having handling issues or anything like that. It's not just an oil change. That's why I tell these guys, how much is a service? That takes me about 6 hours, maybe even a day, depending. And then everybody freaks out, and it's like, well, you just want a 3-hole oil change, it takes me an hour and a half. There's a big difference. It's not a service. I'm not doing your belt, checking spokes, air pressure, motor mounts, critical fasteners, flushing dot 4, dot 5. You're not doing any of that, so I don't know. Anyway, we're still working on this, and we will figure it out, so stick with me. Okay, guys, let me reposition the camera. I want to show you something. Okay, hope you guys can see in here. I really need to get a laser pointer. I almost bought one off the Mako truck on Monday. Anyway, you'll see, if we pull these wires away here, you can see that damage to these particular wires right in here. There's core showing, the insulation on the wire is missing. Now, right next to that, we have wires that run to the engine temperature sensor. The ET sensor, throttle position sensor, map sensor, they all have a 5-volt ground, reference ground, black and white wire, I believe. And if that was grounded out against this cylinder, that TP sensor issue would show up. But you would also have others to accompany it. So I can pretty much, through deductive reasoning, assume that the only shorts we have here are on the horn wires, which we'll take care of. and the engine temperature sensor is fine, so that's not a problem. And I'm not sure, the vehicle speed sensor may run on that circuit too. I'm gonna have to look. So what do? We have an intermittent case like this. I don't have a problem. Initially I thought it was a fuel issue. Still kind of leaning that way, and I'll tell you why. There's a possibility, maybe we have a clogged injector, it became unstuck. So what I'm gonna do is pull the intake system, open up the throttle, cycle the ignition, see if maybe I can see one of the ejectors leaking when it pressurizes up for the first 2 seconds. That could be an issue. I know this bike sits for a long time between rides because he lives out of state. I haven't even taken a look inside the fuel tank, so I'm going to stick a flashlight in there, just take a look at it, smell the fuel, see if it smells old. I've already done wiggle tests on the injectors, all the connections which you saw up at the coil. I moved those wires around, no issues. But we know the bike was running like crap to begin with, and then all of a sudden it started running fine. I'm not the kind of guy that throws parts at bikes. I am not that person. That's not what a good technician does. So sometimes you have to use your brain and a little deductive reasoning to figure this stuff out. So right now I'm leaning towards we may have an injector issue, which would make sense. We're not going to throw codes if it's an injector. If it was partially plugged and all of a sudden it's cleared itself up, I find it interesting that running like crap till I went in, hooked our gauge up, removed the fuel line, hooked our gauge up. Maybe we have a dirty line. Maybe it could have been simple as some air in the line. I highly doubt that though, because air will always clear itself out rather quickly. If you go and look at that V-rod, that last V-rod I did, and after I had put the induction system and everything back together, I said, hey, normally you have to bleed the system. I found that to be a waste of time, and it usually is a waste of time. On the older Morelli bikes, you really had to do it, but the newer stuff, when it went to the Delphi, you didn't really have to. So that's where I'm leaning. Let me get this pulled off. The TP sensor, I think, probably just a historic fault. Maybe it had some anomaly at some point, but I don't really see that being an issue at this point. So we can eliminate that. ThunderMax seems to be working properly. We have good spark. I don't see any issues with the spark plug cables. A lot of times they'll ground out on the rocker boxes where the engine vibrates. I can see a few little marks in the wire, but nothing that's rubbed through or not anything that's going to be an issue. So that's what we're looking at right now. And every now and then I get a good whiff of fuel. So I don't know, I'm still leaning towards a fuel issue. So let's check it out and we'll figure this out together. Okay guys, we have our air cleaner off. I'm going to open up the throttle here, and I'm going to set the thumb screw here so it locks the throttle in place. I'm just going to cycle on the ignition, see if I see any fuel leaking. Let me know if the injectors are actually holding or not. And I do not see any fuel leaking. I don't see any issues there. So what's that tell me? Most likely the injectors are probably okay, because usually if one's clogged up or there's an issue, they tend to leak a little bit. It's just kind of how it goes. So I am smelling fuel though, which is strange. So what I think, I want to look at the intake seals, because we might have, maybe an intake seal that's cracked or rolled or pinched, or and if I look back here on the rear head, I do see, which looks to be, I can't tell honestly if it's fuel or gas, but with that strong smell of fuel that I keep getting, yeah, it might be fuel. I think we got an intake seal leak going on. So this is kind of a weird issue, because normally an intake seal leak won't act like this, to be quite honest with you. But what could happen is if the engine's cold and it hasn't expanded yet, it can run poorly, and then as it expands, it might reseal itself. So you know what, it's not that big of a deal to take a look at that. I think that's what we're going to do. So we'll pull the backing plate here, and then I got to fix the horn wires anyway, so I'm going to have to remove the horn, fix those wires, and then let's pull the intake and take a good look at the seals. And before I get into the intake, I'm going to fix our wires here for the horn. You can see all the insulation where it was rubbed away, and there are some nicks in the wire. I can see a little bit of core showing where it's hitting the back of the cylinder, one of the fins. What I'm going to do is take some heat shrink, just slip it up on here, shrink it, and then put new flag connectors on the end, and nice and neat. I won't have to worry about connectors coming loose or ever touching, anything like that. You know, the wires are in good enough shape that we can do that. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then we'll get on to the intake. All right, we're pretty close to being able to remove the intake. That one's still tight. We need a ratchet. We need a nurse ratchet. See what happens, I'm down here all day alone. I talk to myself and I go crazy. And let's see if we have a leaking intake, because it sure seems to be that's what's going on. There's a lot of, see all the crud here on the bottom of the intake. Some of it's oil here that's coming out of the breathers. Oh, look at that. How could I show you? Maybe that will stay. Ah, it fell out. Okay, well, I'd say we got a leaking intake seal. Look at that, the way it rolled. You guys get a good view of that? Look at that. So what was happening when it was cold, you had more of a gap here, but when it expanded, it must have been sealing up enough that it would actually run. So I'd say that's the bulk of our problem. They're kind of brittle also. If you can see this, they've been in here a long time. You see as I roll it, you can, I don't know if you can hear this, listen. Can you hear that cracking? You can see the edges all in here starting to crack. Hopefully you guys can see that. Get that close enough for you. See the cracks? So let's look at the front one. The rear one definitely leaking. The front one doesn't look too bad, but it's cracking also, as you can see. If I hold it up like this, you can see. Now, let me zoom out, we can talk about this. Okay, as you can see, I could have thrown parts at this. Hey, electrical issue. We had a couple codes that were historic, means they weren't current, but historic, but did our wiggle tests and things like that. We saw our shorted wires on the other side on the rear head, but we knew that they were to the horn. Yes, they were in the proximity of the engine temperature sensor, which is actually, you know, one of the wires, it's actually one of the ground wires. They all connect. TPS sensor, intake air temperature sensor, and I think they go to the vertical speed sensor too. They may or may not, I'd have to look that up. But anyway, you'd have multiple codes, not just the two similar codes. So we kind of eliminated that, and ran really poorly when it was cold, but when it warmed up, actually, as you saw, problem basically went away. Had good fuel pressure, first thing we checked, and sure enough, it looks like it's going to be an intake seal leak. Hopefully that's the only problem we have. I'm leaning that way right now. That looks like we found the issue, because that was a really bad leak. I don't know how long it's been that way, but that's in bad shape. I haven't seen this bike. Boy, I don't think I've seen it for a few years. I'd have to go back and look, but it's been at least 3 years. Some of these guys do their own maintenance. I don't know. I do see a lot of oil pooling under here, so I don't know if they changed their oil. I'm gonna have to look at that also after. That'll be above and beyond. I'm gonna clean it up real good with our ID red, and then see if I can see a leak or if it was just a shoddy oil change. I don't know. Anyway, let's get this resealed. We'll put it back together, and then we'll go from there. Seeing a lot of oil up in the breathers too. Probably would suggest to him he change out his breathers because they get old. But quite honestly, this guy doesn't like to spend money, and he's got plenty of it. He's one of those guys. I'm not saying he's tight. Let's say he's frugal. Anyway, I will give him a call and ask if that's something he wants to do. But anyway, it's kind of funny. So let's get it reassembled. I'll give him a quick call, and we will move on from there. All right, I gave Kevin a call. He said no problem, do the breathers, so I'm gonna take care of that. We'll put the intake seals on. Hopefully we'll get everything back together and see how she runs. He said he had the same issue. He said it might go a day when it was hot and it would be fine, and then other times it would just be terrible. So I know we definitely have an intake seal leak, but to make sure we don't have something else going on and maybe that we missed something, when I'm done, we will take it, mount it on the dyno, and just let it run on there for a little bit and see if anything pops up. All right, let's get to work. And here's our breather valve that we took out. These are the aluminum ones. These were the second generation. They tend to warp The early ones looked just like this, but they were black plastic. So we like to change those out. And these are the third generation, the latest and the greatest. These have been around for quite a while, but stamped steel, I never have trouble with them. Occasionally, you know, like anything else, the umbrella valve here over time can get hard and not work properly, kind of lose its shape a little bit, but overall these last a long time and they never warp, so it'll help with any oil carryover issues getting into the air cleaner. All right, guys, well, I think we're at a point where we can try to give it a start. Hopefully it runs better than it first did, and we'll see what happens. The new breathers are installed. We've checked all the wiring. We fixed those horn wires in the ground on the other side. Obviously the leaking intake seals. Let's give it a start and see what happens. Fuel pump shuts off, that's good. Well, there you have it, as my good friend Steve Lavoie used to say, who used to own a Peace Officer Special and worked at my shop. Great guy. Love you, Steve. Anyway, I think we're going to be all set. I'm going to take this for a really good test ride once I get the filter mounted. We got an issue here with this little chrome cover here is not holding well, so I think what we're going to do is re-glue it. Looks like it's been glued in the past. So I'll get that glued on, let that dry, and then we'll go for a test ride. So I want to thank all of you for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends. Let's see if we can keep the channel growing. That would be great. And I'll go for a little test blast and we'll see how it goes. I might even put on the dyno for a little bit if I think I'm concerned that I'm going to have an issue. But at this point, pretty sure we have it. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time on Bill on Bikes.